Tonight we talk about the school year. How did it go? Where are we headed? But we'll begin with a conversation about street racing. That's right, street racing. Roll it, Scott. Earlier this week at the Metro Council, the Baton Rouge Police Department did address street racing in Baton Rouge. Most of y'all are familiar with what's been going on the last few weeks as it relates to these groups that gather, burn circles in the middle of the interstate or on roads around the city. So what are we doing about that? Uniform Patrol Commander Captain William Clarida is here with us on the desk today to talk about that. Captain, how are you?
Doing well, sir. Thank you for having me.
So Deputy Chief Troy Lawrence did go to the Metro Council this week to talk about how BRPD is going to be addressing the street racing. For people who didn't catch up to that or see the article in the newspaper, tell us what the strategy is.
Well, the strategy has been in place and it's been actually effective since its inception. We started back in actually 2020 with the creation of a task force of a group of officers that were not responsible for the regular calls for service. They would go out and they would address those areas where street racing had been persistent or complaints had come in. It's been good so far, and with the assistance and help from the Metro Council on some of the pieces that they assisted us with as far as the increased penalties and fines and the storage for the vehicle now if somebody commits a violation. It's actually working now. It's not eradicated.
Right.
It's not over, but it is improving.
One of the things that most people remember is the incident that took place on College Drive.
Yes.
Where there was a chase there that started with the street racing there. I think that was the same night of the Garth Brooks concert.
It was.
And there was speculation that maybe this group used the fact that so many law enforcement officers would be at Tiger Stadium dealing with that concert that they wouldn't be available to break up what they were putting together. Talk about that incident.
Well, and I mean, it is a little while now, but to recollection sake, they did pick a night that we would have been incredibly busy. As far as officers that would have been utilized for Garth Brooks, that would have been extra officers. Right. That would not have pulled from our regular sources.
Yeah.
But what did occur is with the crowd, and when that lets out kind of like an LSU game, there are problems in other parts of the city that are adjacent to that, which is the same district in which they chose to do this at College and the interstate. So I don't know if they were that mindful to do that, but the end result was obviously is that it was a very busy night and that they took that opportunity to do what they did. So.
You know, people don't realize how sophisticated this is. I mean, they've got social media pages that they use to tell everybody where they're going to be and the time and the whole thing. And this is a pretty big group that you've seen. You know, how large does this group look?
It's really hard to get an account of the total number of members. I mean, if you drive around town, you can probably see some of the cars that have some of the stickers on them. Probably hear the car before you see it.
Right.
You know, I mean, you know, everybody loves a car that sounds fast and so forth, but you know, it's all on how you treat that. As far as the size of them, I can't give you an actual number. I do know that they're not just a local entity or problem. I do know that they have issues in our adjacent areas. Lafayette, I know New Orleans has a pretty big problem with it. And we have people coming in from not just adjacent cities in Louisiana, but from out of state as well to participate in these things.
What happens if you catch someone if they're participating in that? I mean, what's the penalty against them?
Well, the penalty got enhanced last year thanks to the Metro Council. Drag racing is not just two cars lining up to see who's faster now. It can include the tires being spun. It can include doing the donuts in the intersections. And now, if a spectator is present and participates in watching and being a part of that, they actually can be charged with the drag racing statute as well. So if they're out doing what they've been doing, which is large crowds and thinking they're going to just be a spectator, that's not the case. You're in violation of the law.
I love to hear that. You know, in the next segment, we're going to talk about the Paige Rice Camera Initiative. As a Uniform Patrol Commander, you also are over the Real-Time Crime Center at Baton Rouge Police Department, and we'll get into some of that. You know, are you expecting an uptick in this summer, or are you guys just being precautionary in the event?
We always anticipate the summer months to be busier, and we do adjust manpower accordingly, as well as any initiatives that we put in place. So we are looking at that occurring, and we're putting people in place. We've been doing it now for 2.5 months.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's such a crazy thing that's going on now with that. Captain Clarida is going to talk with us about Memorial Day weekend and the summer months coming up. He's over Uniform Patrol, so he can tell you what the game plan is to address the summer months when more kids are out on the streets. And speaking of kids being out on the streets, the school year is pretty much wrapping up. We'll talk with Adonica Duggan about how this year has gone and goals for the new school year. Back in just a moment. You know, this show is leading into Memorial Day weekend. Actually, the Friday night airing is before, and then Saturday at 2 and 2:30. And this kind of kicks off the holiday season where we see spikes in crime across the country, not just here. Kids are out of school and have a little less to do during the day. Captain Clarida is back with us now. And I know going into this holiday season, strategically, you're always ready for more people to be moving around and the heat of the summer. Talk about it from your experience. What the best approach is to addressing the inevitable spike in crime during the summer?
Well, first and foremost, we would hope that parents are mindful of where their young adults are and what they're doing, because we do tend to see an uptick in crime involving juveniles in the summer months because they are not in school. Also, just to be aware that, you know, we do have additional officers out at peak times.
Right.
That way we can address those problems that have been, you know, plaguing us in the past. That's one of the great things about the hotspot policing and some of those pieces where you get intelligence information that can lead you to know not exactly where, but a really good idea as to where something might occur in the time frame and the days of the week. So we do try to adjust manpower accordingly.
And you know, that's one thing that I know that y'all have done is target these areas where crime has been at its hottest, and it has had an impact on violent crime for the most part. Although over the last few days we've seen a spike there, those come and go. But you guys are ready for the summer.
As prepared as you can be. Like I said, we've been talking about this since February. All of our meetings that we have with the upper command staff and with some of the operational people have been, you know, kind of a reminder, hey, this is coming up. We've had some of the statisticians assist us in getting information as to the previous years where crimes have occurred, if there was an overlay where clusters have occurred, kind of like repeat areas. So all those things have been done. Like I said, as much as you can prep for it, we've prepped.
Well, let's talk about the Paige Rice Camera Initiative. So obviously you're very aware of that. The Real-Time Crime Center was stood up at Baton Rouge Police Department about 3 years ago?
March of 2020, so yes, sir,
yeah,
a little bit more.
A little over 3 years ago. And the initiative, if you're not familiar with it, is something born out of the Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice Foundation. And we initially got a federal grant, because I'm on the board, and Captain Clarida is a part of that as well. Got a federal grant that allowed us to have residents in the community go online to solicit to get a camera if they live in a high crime area. BRPD or the Sheriff's Office would go out, do an assessment as to whether a camera can go there and where it would go if it can go out there. The other option was for a business to say, look, I would like a camera on my structure in one of these areas or anywhere across the city. And the third option was, hey, look, we want more cameras in high crime areas. We're going to buy one and donate it to the initiative. Where are we with Paige Rice right now? Well,
Paige Rice is booming, to say the least. It's been well received by the community, and I think I've said it before, but you know, sometimes, you know, something good can occur from tragedy.
Right.
But as far as where we're at with Baton Rouge Police Department numbers, we have about 65 assessments pending for either residences or businesses.
Good.
We have 47 assessments completed that have been submitted, means they got to be reviewed by the foundation. And then we have 24 installs completed by the companies. So it's growing exponentially.
Yeah.
So, I mean, every month it seems like that number doubles or even more so. And please make no mistake, the crime cameras and LPR systems that we have put in place every day are helping us, which obviously I can't go into detail, but even on some of the most recent incidents, they've assisted us in getting some images that hopefully will pan out to where we can get some arrest on those.
Well, we've talked about it here that those cameras were essential. They're very important in tracking what was happening with the guy from Atlanta,
yes,
who was moving through downtown Baton Rouge.
Correct.
Obviously, right after it happened, y'all couldn't jump out and say everything you knew because it was a case that was still pending. But as he moved through downtown Baton Rouge, y'all were aware of him everywhere he was.
Yes, absolutely. So as you're building a case, you know, the camera information assists you in putting those pieces together. On that particular night, it showed to where he had left from and where he'd went to. Then we got witness information that assisted us in knowing kind of where he was at and where he left from there. And then even after the fact, when those questions started coming up as to where he was, we were able to put together some pieces with one of the crime cameras that Paige Rice assisted in getting a vehicle image. So
yeah,
all that plays a part in what we're doing every single day now. When something happens, the first question is there cameras in that area?
We're getting more and more of them up. Listen, you can find out more about the initiative at brcollab.org or safebr.org and learn about where you can get involved, whether it's donating, buying, or finding out about getting a camera. Captain Claret, I appreciate it, my friend.
As always.
Coming up, we're going to talk with Adonica Duggan about this year's school year and where we're headed. And I want to talk a little bit at the end of the show about the loss of an icon this week. Back in just a moment. Oh, she's back again, Adonica Duggan with the Baton Rouge Alliance for Students. And we started talking about Baton Rouge Alliance before the year started. Now we are basically at the end of the school year. And let's start where we are. How do you think this year has gone?
You know, I think we've had a lot of progress. I think we've seen a lot of positive initiatives. I think that we're trying to focus in on the right things. I think there's always still a lot more work to be done.
Yeah.
But I think all in all, you know, we've had a decent school year, you know, and we see the beginnings of a lot of things that hopefully will come to fruition. So.
What were your goals for your organization? Because not only are you advocating for kids in the traditional public school model, Baton Rouge Alliance also does work with charters that are in growing number across the parish. Going into this year, what were your goals?
I think, you know, we have an exciting new school offering that'll open this coming fall in Great Hearts, and so that'll be great. Just continuing to add to the number of choices that families have for their kids and making sure that more families understand how to make those choices, right? So for us, there's a big priority around making sure that families are aware of where they can send their kids to school, what meets their kids' needs, and making sure that they find that match, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting to talk about where districts are around the country. The number one topic obviously is pay for teachers. And I know that in this budget there was a percentage raise for teachers in East Baton Rouge Parish. I think it was 8%.
Well, they're currently in budget negotiations right now. I think that the goal for the district is to give an across the board 8% salary increase. And I think that that'll really help in making this district more competitive and recruiting the talent.
Well, let's talk about how we got to this place over time with teachers not being paid in the way that they should. How we get here?
You know, I'm the daughter of an educator. I come from a family of educators, and I really can't understand this lack of emphasis on recruiting the best and brightest to be in classrooms. And I think that, you know, over time we've kind of eroded the importance of what's taking place in our classrooms and how important those individuals who are in front of our kids every day are to making our community a great place to live.
You know, Captain Claret was just here talking about the work the department is going to be doing in the city. I don't understand why teachers and I believe police officers, because the police department is having the same issue trying to find funding to pay officers. But I think teachers are on par with law enforcement in their importance to a community. And it just seems over time that value has just, people have either ignored it or they didn't keep it up. And you see charter schools coming in, and a lot of the charters don't have the same issue.
Right.
Because from the beginning, they prioritize the talent in the classroom before the kids get there. How does the traditional model, or how should the traditional model change its paradigm?
I think we've seen districts, even in this state, do really innovative things around paying their best and brightest.
Okay.
I think the challenge that districts have is that they try to have this one-size-fits-all approach to how they pay educators. If you have a really hard to staff area, so we know finding great math teachers is a challenge, finding great special ed teachers is a challenge, you can incentivize pay for educators to go into those places. That's well within the realm of what the districts have the authority to do. You can also incentivize pay for some of your highest need schools. So if I said, you know, I have a school where I know that those kids are least likely to be exposed to a great educator, I can say, I'm going to pay you more for the next 3 years to go into that classroom. And, you know, a lot of districts have gone to more innovative staffing models, and I think we've seen a lot of success with attracting the best and brightest into those districts where they know that they're going to be compensated for their performance in a different way.
It's so interesting because around us, you've got West Feliciana, top 5 school district. Zachary within the parish, top 5 school district. Ascension Parish right next door, top 5. Livingston is among some of the better school districts. And here is EBR, constantly the little engine that could, trying to do it. Is it just because of the poverty here, or what's the cause? And we got less than a minute. We'll start and come back.
Yeah, I think that, you know, a lot of people will tell you it's because of poverty, and I think that that's a belief gap around what we believe is possible for certain children. We know that it takes more resources. We know that it takes more supports. We know that it takes more interventions. We know that it takes high dosage tutoring, and you've got to start implementing some of those things that you know are effective.
So, you know, we're obviously we're going into the summer, as we just talked about in the last segment. Kids are going to be out of school. What are your thoughts on these districts around the country doing or looking at year-round school?
I think you need to have kids engaged in some meaningful activities all summer long. So I think kids need a brain break. I need a brain break. You know, we all need a vacation, but I do think our community partners like the Y, like BREC, like, you know, so many Front Yard Bike, so many great community partners offer programming that keeps kids engaged and has them in some meaningful activity, and frankly keeps them off the street. You want them to be with adults who love and care for them, and you want them to be continuing their learning all summer long.
We're going to take a quick break and come back and talk with Adonica about change makers and a little bit more about what the district should be looking at going forward, and then engaging more on the charter school subject. There's so many charters coming to East Baton Rouge with dynamic agendas for kids. We'll be back and talk more with Adonica Duggan in just a moment. Oh, if you could be privy to the conversations we have during commercial break, maybe we'll come up with an all-access thing that we could you know, maybe sell down the road. Back with Adonica Duggan with Baton Rouge Alliance for Students. And, you know, the elephant in the room obviously is that our school superintendent has applied for a job someplace else, and we're not going to get into that today because it's up in the air. So who knows where that's going to be. At some time we'll have a chance to come back here and talk about whether he remains here or ends up going to Broward County. Let's get back to East Baton Rouge Parish, change makers. So many people who follow what you do on social media, they see the posts with people that you guys recognize and come speak to the group. What is change makers for someone who doesn't know?
Change Makers is our education leadership program. We ask community leaders to give us a day a month to learn more about what's going on in public education, particularly around the K-12 space in Baton Rouge. And so we engage them with community leaders, we engage them with school board members, state leaders, we tour schools, and then we just got back from our city visit, which is kind of the culminating experience where we go to another city and we tour schools.
Where'd y'all
there.
go?
We went to Indianapolis this year.
Wow.
And we rotate cities every year. We went to Indianapolis this year, I think San Antonio next year. So applications are going to open soon for the next Changemakers cohort. But we really feel like it's a good way for people who aren't necessarily connected to public education in our city, or who have a limited view of their own experience or their children's own experience, to learn more about what's happening across our city in schools of every type.
Where can people learn more about that?
bralliance.org.
Okay, bralliance.org. The perspective that you get from going into a school is not one you get from reading about schools in the newspaper. No. I think people miss that. Yeah. The one thing that pops out to me when I visit schools is the passion of the teachers for the students.
That's right.
But then it's also the nature of kids who are in the school and what they need. Let's take people inside of these schools in East Baton Rouge Parish to tell them what they may not know about what's happening there?
You know, I think the passion is definitely something that, you know, really strikes a soft space in my heart, which there are those. I know people think there aren't. But, you know,
Are you sure?
There are. But, you know, I don't think that anybody signs up to be an educator because they want to be like the best paid person in the country, right?
No.
They sign up because they want to do great things for kids.
Right.
And you see that when you walk through the halls of schools.
Right.
And you see how much the kids in our community need from their schools. You know, when we went through the pandemic, we realized how many kids were relying on schools for the meals that they had.
Yeah.
How many community services come into the schools and connect with young people and their families there. And so I really believe that our schools are community hubs, and we have to treat them as community hubs, and we have to make sure that the resources and support that families need are concentrated in the places that they're most likely to have access. And frankly, that's the place that they send their most precious possession every day.
You know, not that, boy, let me start something here. Not that that you would run the school system here.
Absolutely not.
But she could absolutely
Not
do
never.
it, though. Yeah,
Not
she could do it. I'm just telling you how she could do
Law
it.
says I can't,
She could do it. So, but if you were, AD, you are very knowledgeable about what is working, and you just talked about visiting other districts to benchmark what successes are and how they're dealing with problems. What would be your priority list here?
I think literacy. I think,
Okay.
you know, the state superintendent and I think our EBR superintendent have both had a priority around literacy rates. And I
Okay.
think that what we know is that if a kid is not on track by third grade, their likelihood of being able to catch up and have life outcomes that we want for them is very minimal.
Okay.
And I think that, you know, we know that we have to start putting stronger interventions and supports in all of our lower elementary schools. We have, you know, the number of schools where we have less than 10 third graders reading on grade level in this city is abysmal.
I just love the work that you're doing, and even during the summer, we'll be talking with AD about things that people should remember. I really think there should be a concerted effort to message to parents during the summer about not letting that lag pull their kids back, especially kids who are already behind.
Absolutely.
Look, and under a minute, I want to be able to say congratulations to your baby who's graduating from high school this week. Oh, she's going to ugly cry so
I'm gonna
bad.
ugly cry
Listen,
so bad.
I need a photo of somebody if you catch her doing it. All right. So again, where can people learn more about Baton Rouge Alliance?
bralliance.org or on all the socials.
bralliance.org or on all the socials. Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
And Adonica does a whole lot more than even you guys may imagine, but she could do that job. But I'm not starting anything. I'm just saying that. That's just me.
No.
Happy Memorial Day to the families who are remembering the fallen, and also, what a loss. Tina Turner. Rest in peace, Queen. See y'all next week.